Hey everybody, today we are talking about The Keeper of Lost Things by Ruth Hogan. The Keeper of Lost Things is a story that is split into two timelines. The first timeline is with our main characters Laura and Freddie and Sunshine, as well as Anthony Perdue. And the other timeline, 40 years earlier in 1974, with Eunice as our main character, as well as Bomber. The very beginning of the story starts with Anthony's timeline. He is an author of short stories about lost things, different items that people have lost. And it's based on his actual life, where he is collecting things that he has found that he wanted to try to return to people, but at first he just kind of wanted them to be in a safe place, so that if anybody ever did come looking for it, he would have it somewhere safe. And it turns out that one of the things he finds at the very beginning of our story is a biscuit tin, but when he opens it, it has ashes in it. So it turns out that it is somebody who has passed that is in a biscuit tin for some reason and was left on a train station. And so he decided to take it with him and put it in his collection of lost things, hoping that it would be safe there and eventually found. Now, Anthony knows that he is on his way out. He's getting older. He feels very much ready to reunite with his loved one who has been dead for a very long time. They were going to get married, and she just had, I think, a brain aneurysm or something. It was like a very sudden thing, and she just died one morning just walking somewhere. And so it was very, very tragic. And Anthony just always had her in his heart. Laura is an assistant that has been working with him for a little while and has grown to really, really love being at his home and taking care of it and taking care of him and taking care of his manuscripts and just helping him out with things like that. There's also Freddie, I mentioned earlier, who is the gardener that comes by every once in a while, who is a few years younger than Laura, but Laura kind of has the hots for him anyway. She was once married to someone named Vince, and they got divorced because he was a terrible husband, and now she's single. And Sunshine is this lovely girl who lives across the street that is very observant and really wants to go and meet Laura. And she is like, I think 19, and she has what they call in the book and what she calls dance syndrome, which is Down syndrome, and she calls it dancing drome. She is very smart and thinks that Laura probably could use a friend, because this isn't really a spoiler, because at the very beginning of the book, Anthony is preparing to die, basically. So he passes, and Laura's doesn't know what to do. She's just feels like now she herself is lost because she doesn't know what she's gonna do. But it turns out that Anthony has written a letter to her specifically wanting her to take over the house, keep it growing, keep it good, keep it well. And the only request that he really has is, well, two requests: to keep the rose bush, because that's where his late lover's ashes have been spread, was on the rose bush, and the rose bush is just very important to them. And he also wants to be there with her, and he also really hopes that Laura will try to replace or find the owners for all the lost things, which is a pretty daunting task because he's been collecting these things for years, and so there's just hundreds of things in the shelf of this room that are just, some of them are little trinkets that seem silly that no one would want back, and some are rather big things, like that biscuit tin that he found. I believe that was like the last thing he found. Laura is a little worried about taking on that task, but she knows she's going to, because she cared greatly for Anthony and the opportunity that she had being able to work for him. And so she decides to go through with it. Freddie and her decide that they should make a website, and Sunshine decides to come over and become Laura's new friend so that she won't be alone. And that is all at the very beginning of the book, pretty much. And so basically the book continues. We get to read some of the short stories that Anthony wrote about the lost items. We get to learn more about Eunice and Bomber's side of it. So 40 years earlier, Eunice is like the same age as Anthony. Eunice and Bomber, they have like a publishing company, and it's right around the time Anthony's trying to publish his first set of collections of short stories. It also happens to be the same timeline where Anthony's lover, it's either Teresa or Therese, I forgot to double check on that, but she passes away during this timeline, during the Eunice timeline. And so when we go back and forth, we learn more about Eunice and Bomber, and they both work at a publishing company, and we get to learn about how they are connected to the other timeline. Part of that being Anthony's was trying to get published at their publishing company, and it slipped through the cracks somehow. Like, they had the manuscript and it got mixed up into other manuscripts or something, and it got just unfortunately looked over, or unlooked over. Because of that, not like, I guess you could call it a rival publishing company, Anthony goes to them and they end up picking up his stories, and it's very, very successful. And so it was kind of like a darn for Bomber's company to not have picked it up. That's basically like the connection, or so it seems at first. There's a lot of things that get, of course, revealed later on in the book that see why there are more connections between these two storylines. And I would say that some of it is like, it was not very hard to pick up on some of these things. Like, I predicted quite a few things to happen that did happen, and it's not that it ruined it for me to guess the ending, because I think that you're just hoping, like, the predictions that you make, you're kind of hoping that they come true, and by the end you're like, yes, it did come true. And so it's like, it's one of those situations where you're hopeful about a certain outcome and you'll get the outcome. I think most people would probably be on the same wavelength that I was when I was reading this, and be able to put some pieces of the puzzle together, and to find more of these connections between these two storylines and how they all add up to be important in the end. We have a little bit of drama with Laura and her ex-husband and Freddie and just honestly, I think that's the one thing I would say that could have been taken out of the story, was Vince tries to come back into Laura's life to kind of win her over again and try to get her back, and it just seems kind of random and unnecessary. Like, we've heard a lot about Vince, but we've never met him, and then we're finally getting a scene where we're meeting him. He has his own dialogue. He comes to the house to see Laura, but it just kind of feels like it didn't really need to be in there. And I think maybe the reasons it was in there is because Freddie and Laura were they kind of had a falling out, but it was kind of awkward because they were still working together at the house, but they were just distant because of something that happened, and it kind of seemed just like silly all around that they were in this like little rift, or whatever you want to call it. And then having Vince come in and shake things up a little bit kind of helped Freddie and Laura stop being silly and start, talking to each other again and starting to mend their friendship. And I think that's probably the only reason why Vince came into the picture, because it's like, why? Like, do we need to can we just have him be a character in Laura's past, and just have it be part of the story, but not have him enter it in that kind of way? I don't think we really needed that, but everything else made a lot of sense to have in the story. Everything else I liked, and yeah, overall, I enjoyed this story. I thought it was a really good title, The Keeper of Lost Things. I thought, well, what's that even mean? Like, what kind of lost things are they keeping? How did they become the Keeper of Lost Things? I just thought the story, like, the title already was just intriguing enough for me to pick it up and buy it without even reading anything about it on the back. And so as I started reading it, finding out about all of these things and these collection of things that were connected to people and trying to return them, I liked it. I thought it was a nice story. So If you think that that also sounds interesting to you, we've got a lot of great diversity in this book as well that I really liked. Having a character with Down syndrome, having a character who is not straight, having those characters in this story, I think, I don't think that they were put in there just to be put in there. I think they actually enhanced the story to make it a good story. And I really like how Sunshine was written. She's 19, and when she first comes into the story, Laura kind of dismisses her a little bit. She doesn't really know how to act around her. She doesn't always take what she says as seriously, because I think she still kind of sees her as like a child. But she's not. She's a grown adult now. And she's in fact very intuitive and smart, and she knows what she's talking about. And a lot of times she actually knows the answer to the questions that Laura and Freddie are trying to figure out. And they just, again, they kind of dismiss her. And Sunshine sticks up for herself and she says, "You guys never listen to me." And they are like, "I'm sorry, what were you saying?" And they start really truly listening to her, and it turns out she was right all along. She did have all the answers. And I like that Laura had this good character development, where at the beginning she just didn't really, I just feel like she didn't really know how to see Sunshine, and then at the end she really truly sees her. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.